Welcome, everybody, to episode 71 of UnHacked. Guys, this week we are here to talk about the new improvements and advancements in healthcare pertaining to baldness. Just kidding. Listen, before we got the cameras rolling and we sat around, there's two guys in here that are bald, one guy who was afraid of being bald or something, and then a third or fourth guy that just likes to brag about how he's not. And your term's coming, buddy. Anyways, we're not really here to talk about that. We're talking about cybersecurity, everybody's favorite subject. We're here to help business owners prevent game-ending cyber attacks, specifically in the world of healthcare today. So I'm Justin Shelley, CEO of Phoenix IT Advisors. We're going to run around the room and do some quick introductions. My company helps businesses build wealth using technology and then protect that wealth from who, Mario? The Russian hackers. Only the Russians. Government fines and penalties and class action lawsuits. Mario, do you have anything to say about that?
No, we'll keep it like that today. We'll just focus on the Russians today. We won't mention all the other countries.
Fair enough. All right, Mario, tell everybody who you are, what you do, and who you do it for.
Mario Zaki, CEO of Mastic IT, located in beautiful New Jersey, right outside of Manhattan. I've been in business for 21 years, helping small to medium-sized businesses stay safe from those other countries that we were mentioning, along with Russian hackers. And we specialize in giving business owners the ability to sleep better at night, knowing that their business will be there tomorrow morning when they wake up.
That's always a plus. That's always a plus. I love it when I wake up and my business is still there. And sometimes it's a roll of the dice, guys. And I mean, in reality, and that's why we are here to increase your odds. Bryan, your turn. Who are you? What do you do? And who do you do it for?
Well, sometimes I wonder who I am, but today I'm Bryan Lachapelle with B4 Networks, CEO. We're located in beautiful Niagara, Ontario, Canada, and we help business owners remove the headaches and frustrations that come with dealing with technology, and we do that by being your guide and implementing a plan to get from A to Z.
Beautiful. Beautiful. All right, guys, time for special guest introductions. I'm really excited to have our guest today. Today, we are introducing Milan Rogers, who I'm going to give a quick story. Today, we're going to talk about how he got there. Today, Milan is a full-time consultant for Complete Healthcare Business Consulting. Perfect, because we do so much work in healthcare. I've always wanted a guest like this on here. So, Milan, thank you for being here. Really appreciate that.
Thanks.
Now, let me tell your story, and you correct me where I get it wrong, but you got into this world kind of in a roundabout direction, and I think we all have some version of that story, but you were an occupational therapist by education, correct?
Yes.
And then took the natural progression into Unix sysadministration in the IT world. That makes perfect sense.
Total sense.
You managed a NOC, which is Network Operations Center, for those that don't know.
That's right.
You loved that, and I believe your favorite part of that was getting woken up at 3:00 in the morning. Is that correct?
All the time. Yeah. Sleep deprivation. It's my favorite.
Right. And so since you were having such a good time there, you switched into healthcare administration, healthcare management, MBA. You went back to school, got some additional education, practice manager, HIPAA security officer, and then to where you are today. Did I get it all right?
Yeah, that's a pretty good summation. Yeah. It's been an interesting ride for sure. No, I mean, I just have to go back to the transition from occupational therapist to Unix. I mean, how do you make that left turn? So basically, what happened was I couldn't get a job as an occupational therapist because of some stuff Congress did, and everybody was on a hiring freeze for therapists. So my friend said, "Hey, I can get you an interview with this company," and I sat across from this guy, and he goes, "I noticed here you don't have any technical experience." I'm like, yeah. And he goes, "That's all right. You have a master's degree. We'll give you a shot. You won't be worth anything to us for like 6 months, but whatever." So I just bought stacks of books and dove right in and kind of figured out and embraced my inner nerd. So it was good.
I mean, hats off to you there. And listen, the world of technology is like that. I remember reading those books that were 1,100, 1,200 pages long. And then you'd go take a test and get a certification, and that was the education back in the day.
Yeah,
there wasn't really school for it.
Forget everything you read.
Dude, I had my very first employee would get through one of those books in a weekend and pass the test. like Monday or Tuesday, dude was a genius.
Wow.
Crazy.
Wow.
I can't do that. I can't. It takes me so long to read. That's my ADHD. We're not going to talk about that. Anyways, guys, let's go ahead and get started today. We're going to talk about and Milan, when we did our little strategy session, there's one line in there that really caught my attention. You said, with emphasis, you have to have a plan and you have to be compliant. And again, we're talking about the healthcare world, but I'm going to say this applies to all of us. If you have technology, you better have a plan and you better be compliant. Now, tell me a little bit about why you said that. What kind of got you to that point?
Yeah. So, I mean, you see it on the news. We're going to talk about some examples of that, but, you know, I guess maybe it was last year before, we had a medical billing company locally that was managed the billing for, all processing all the claims for a bunch of medical practices in the area. Well, they had a ransomware attack, and everything came to a screeching halt. They wouldn't pay the money, and they couldn't get their data. They lost 2 years worth of medical billing data, and so it wasn't. They're just the vendor, but all those practices had to take out lines of credit just to cover their payroll, all that kind of stuff. And so just to see just locally, just one example of how just the devastation, because cash flow is everything in a small business. And so you have these medical practices, and a lot of them are just, white knuckling, and they're just hanging on the cliff, and if you have any disruption in payments from those claims, any at all, it can just have this cascading effect that's just devastating. And we saw that while the billing company shut down, they didn't communicate effectively with their clients, with the medical practices, and they didn't follow the breach notification requirements from the government. And so they got a lot of hot water, and they eventually were shut down. But I haven't really followed what's happened after that, like if there's any class action lawsuits or anything like that. But that's just one example. But the reason why, as a consultant, I say this to my clients all the time: you got to have something in place. You got to be on top of this, is because healthcare has the biggest target on its back across any sector. And the reason why is because if you medical records on the dark web, you buy, they have the highest value. So just a complete medical record is worth between $250 to $1,000 per record. And if it's a highly sensitive information like oncology, genomics, anything with like your financial, and insurance details, it's between $1,000 and $5,000 per record. How much is it for like a credit card number? Like $2, right? You can buy a whole list of them pretty inexpensively. But so this is like premium data, right? So another thing is the cost for breaches in healthcare are higher than any other sector by far. Probably almost double from the next closest one.
That's because of the stuff that you have to do afterwards, right? Like you have to get like credit monitoring for every patient for, I think, a minimum of 1 year or something like that.
So there's all kinds of requirements under HIPAA that you have to follow when there is a breach. There's a whole protocol that you have to follow to do that. But so let's just go ahead.
Yeah. I know I'm cutting you off. I just have a question for you. So those high valued charts, like the $5,000 charts, what do these guys use those oncology records for?
That's a question. Why is it? Yeah, so much?
I'm going to get to that in just a second. I'm going to talk about,
because I just want the credit cards. And they're cheaper. I get them in bulk, and I get a discount.
Well,
oh shit, are we recording? I shouldn't have said that.
Yeah, right. No, we're going to talk about the types of frauds, including what they could use that information for, in just a second. But what I wanted to do is, the health sector leads with the highest breach costs at, on average, $10.93 million per breach.
Okay, so here I've got a question on that, because as a small business myself, a lot of my clients are very small businesses. When I hear that number, it's like, it can't cost me $10 million.
No, it's hospitals.
Right.
Of course, but still, it's all relative, right?
It is.
If it's 25,000, 50,000, those could be like, I think I said this to you, Justin, before, which is these can be door closing events. These will close. Yeah. These can shut your businesses down if you have to pay these kind of fines, not just to those that have, the hackers, but it could be all the other stuff you have to pay, the fines and things like that. It just is massive. The next closest sector is the financial sector, and the average is like 5.9 million. So
really, half as much.
So let's talk about okay, so that's massive. We're talking massive amounts of money, and again, it's all relative. Doesn't matter if you're a small business or if you're a large organization. It's still going to hurt. That's
I would love to see it as a % of gross revenue. Honestly, that's a number that would be more meaningful. I wish they would publish it that way.
Yeah, that actually would be super interesting. Okay, so let's talk about the different types of fraud schemes that can be perpetrated using medical records, right? Well, the obvious ones are like identity theft or medical identity theft, where they can go in your name, they can receive care, they can fill prescriptions, they can open up insurance claims in your name, they can, and collect on those, they can do phantom medical billing. And I was looking more into this. There's something called synthetic identities, and you guys might be familiar with this, but you can take that information from the medical records and fabricate using real medical record data to create new identities for long-term fraud. So you can, because you have the keys to the kingdom. When you have medical records, a complete one, you have family members, you have dates, you just have details that you otherwise would not have, that you can perpetrate so much more in the way of identity fraud, right? You can have what's account takeover, so or payment diversion. So if you are submitting a claim, they can divert the claim to the payments to them. They can exhaust a patient's benefits, but and so when the patient comes to use their benefits, it's already been used up, right? You have provider impersonation. For whatever reason, you can maybe open up credit lines and get those kind of things, or you can. It's just whenever you have a provider's information and you can impersonate them, it opens up a whole other level of fraud. And then you have, of course, tax and financial fraud, targeted phishing. So think about this. If you have a medical record and you have all that information, how you can socially engineer just by calling that patient directly or calling somebody related to that patient to extract more information or that you need or want for a fraud or to make some money off of them. And then, of course, the genomic stuff. You guys asked about that. Extortion. So if you have genetic information, you have oncology information. Let's say this is a public figure. This is somebody that is a pillar of their community. If you have psychiatric information or reproductive information, you find out that for some people, and maybe in the political circles, they find out that, this political candidate had an abortion.
Had a bastard son.
Right? I mean, it just so extortion is one of those. I'm not saying it's the only way to use that information, but it's a big ticket item. So those are some areas where you see fraud using medical records. You just think about, you have a Visa card number, or you have the keys to the kingdom. You might even have Visa. You might even have some of that information in these medical records if there's financial data involved as well. So,
yeah. Crazy stuff. When you opened up, you talked about that the breach that happened to a billing company, right? And one of the it's not a direct relation, but one of my biggest frustrations when I'm talking to people about, and Bryan, you were saying before, like, you're up in Canada, you guys don't have the same amount of teeth in the law as we do down here. Yeah. But regardless, I see a general sense of apathy. It's just like, either it's not going to happen to me, or we're too small, we're not a target. I don't have anything they want. That's my favorite one. We just don't really have anything that they want.
Yeah.
And my answer to that is always, well, you have money, right? You have a bank account. They want that. And they're going to find a way to get that. 100% of the time, they're coming after your money. But what I really would like to drive home, and I feel it myself, and I wish more business owners felt this, is that we are stewards of our clients and of their information. And, in that billing company situation, it's not just your problem.
No.
The people that you take money from, and that's if you don't care at all, but hopefully you do. So the people you care about, the people you serve, the people that you are passionately trying to help run their businesses, damn, I mean, you just took them for a ride. And it's your own fault. I don't know the case, in this particular case, but almost always, the 97% of the time, roughly, these things are preventable with basic security measures. Not even talking about the fancy stuff. Just get the basics in place, and we're going to prevent most of it. So
I love that you said that about you're connecting it back to the people, because in healthcare, I'm focused in healthcare every day, and it is about the patients. It always is about the patients, and these are people's lives we're talking about. There's a real world impact to that, both financially and socially, and there's every other aspect of this. It's pretty serious business, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, you see people, on social media broadcasting their vacations to Europe and all this kind of stuff, but they don't have money to protect their business. It's like,
yeah. Well, and honestly, a lot of them say, "Well, I don't have time." There'll be excuses about why they haven't done it, but the truth is with HIPAA specifically, the stuff we're talking about here, you really do need to have experts coming in to help you with this. This is something that you do need help with. It's not something that you can just manage on your own and just shooting from the hip. It just doesn't work with something as highly regulated as healthcare.
I'd like to add something, and it's basically something you just said. I don't have time, and maybe I could relate it to something that doctors and the practice managers can relate with. A lot of people say they don't have time to exercise. They don't have time to take care of their health. They don't have time to eat right. They don't have the money to buy good food. They don't have the money or the resources to be able to take care of their bodies the way they should.
There's time for that shit.
Right. And as doctors and as medical practitioners, they're telling their patients, you need to do this to survive. Well, we're basically saying the same. You need to do this security for your business to survive. Right.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. You don't have time. You don't have the money. Bananas. You have the time. You have the money. It has to be done. Whether you're in Canada or the United States, the rules still say you have to protect your data. Just because there are no teeth here in Canada doesn't mean that you should have apathy and not do it. Because if you're preaching to your patients that you need to take care of your bodies and your health, we're preaching that you need to take care of your company and its health. So just wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah.
Very good point.
Well, one thing I do want to add into that, we mentioned, we're obviously blaming the billing company for not taking the proper precautions, no matter how basic they are, to protect themselves and protect the doctor's office that they serve. But I'm also going to blame the doctor's office in this, because they need to vet the vendors that they're working with.
Great point.
Yeah.
Great
because,
point. Yeah.
Because, we see it all the time. I'll speak, for myself. We have customers all the time that says, we want to work with this new vendor or this new customer, and they provided us a list of, cybersecurity, checklist that we need to make sure we're compliant to even do business with them. And it's our job to make sure, like, you have this, you have this, you have this. You don't have this, we will get it for you. This, and this. Doctors' offices, unfortunately, sometimes they will say, okay, well, this medical billing company is going to charge us 1% less to do the same work, so we're going to switch over them. But they don't vet them,
Right. Yep.
Yeah. Why are they less? There's a reason that they are cheaper.
I want to highlight too, just something we all just did. We all just did it. Every single one of us blamed the company, the medical practitioners, and they are the victims. They are the victims of a cyber crime, and none of us, and this is just natural. Like, we're blaming the victim for something that in reality we should be blaming the cyber criminals, but we have no control over that. It's such a wild west out there. The only thing we have control over is what we as individual companies do to protect ourselves. That's not to say that you follow all the rules, you will never be breached. But if you follow all the rules, Justin hit the nail on the head, 97% of the time, you will be fine. There is that 3% and that's what insurance and ultimately is for. But there is
Right.
that 3% that, no matter what you do, you may still be a victim of cybercrime. But if you're not that low-hanging fruit on the tree, you're way ahead of the others, and they'll go after the people who are abdicating or have apathy in their businesses. And so it's like the bear thing, right? You don't have to outrun the bear, you just have to outrun the slowest party that you're with.
It's crazy because and you could talk about resources and time, but even those organizations that have the resources aren't doing it. Like I want to talk specifically around Change Healthcare. This was probably one of the largest, if not the largest, breach in healthcare in history. It happened last year, like February of last year. Attackers stole the credentials of a remote system for Change Healthcare. And Change Healthcare is owned by United Healthcare, which is the largest out there. They're the biggest healthcare company in the United States. And so they own Change Healthcare. Well, somebody got in, did not have multi-factor authentication enabled.
So
right? So basic. And it was a legacy technology. So it was probably sitting over here on an older system that hadn't been updated, didn't have MFA enabled, and they got in. Well, it was ransomware, and they stole the data, and of course encrypted it, stole it, and then they got extorted twice by two different organizations from that data.
Two different orgs?
So it's like they pay and still get extorted, right? They paid like, I think United Healthcare Group, they paid like $22 million to, I don't know this group, you might know, it's Alpha, ALPHV, it's like upside down, Alpha. And then Ransom Hub was the second criminal organization that extorted them because they got the data too. So double whammy, right? So that was just from the extortion that they had, and so that was $22 million. Well, let's talk about the effect. We talk about patients, okay? The people affected they say was around 190 to 193 million individuals.
Oh wow!
Insane. So there's also, let's talk about the financial impact. Now, UHC, I think their direct and sort of near-term costs, they're estimating it between 2.3 and 2.45 billion dollars.
Had to be with a B, yeah.
Well, that's what that started with, and then it went up to 2.87, almost $3 billion in direct near-term costs. Now that's just, and they were separating out the cyber attack direct response costs, and that's probably not even including like all of the fines and everything else. I mean, just Mario, you were talking about what are the expenses that around the cost of all the stuff. Yeah, after the breach. So this is just such a massive deal. But let's talk about what happened, the actual downstream effect, because
real quick before you go there, I do want to go there.
Yeah.
But another thing that isn't always taken into account when you're looking at the cost of a breach or when you're looking at the risk, because everything we do in business, we have to weigh the cost versus the risk versus the benefit, right? These are not simple decisions. So anybody here familiar with SEO, search engine optimization? Marketing, right? We spend a lot of time and money trying to show up in Google listings just for fun. Go ahead and Google search Change Healthcare. You know what you don't see? What a great company they are. You know what you do see? Massive breach. Like their reputation's cooked.
That's true.
So I mean, there's so much that goes into this to not have the budget, to not have the time, to not have the passion and Jesus, you have some fear. Like, I don't like spreading fear, but damn it, have some fear, people, because this can be bad. All right, go ahead. Let's talk.
That's actually such a huge point. Yeah, your name is Mud. This billing company, their name is Mud, right? I mean, one locally.
Even Wikipedia says they're an organization that blah blah blah. They were breached. It's like
it's like the tagline underneath the name now, right? I mean, it's horrible. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. What I was going to say about the downstream disruption, besides what you're talking about with their brand destruction, is so many they processed claims. That's what they did for
Yeah.
massive amounts of providers throughout the country. So what happens when all of a sudden they can't process claims? So what they had to do was, first of all, CMS, Medicare, they opened up accelerated advanced Medicare payments, like paying them in advance, so that providers could stay solvent. We're talking about solvency, right?
Right. Yeah.
We're not even talking about like, oh, this is inconvenient. We're talking about providers throughout the country that are having possible insolvency issues. So Optum, which is also is the Medicare branch of sort of United Healthcare, they handle all the Medicare claims. So Optum did temporary funding assistance, provided no interest advances to these impacted providers. So they're scrambling to throw money at them to help them kind of in advance. I mean, all this stuff was happening, and I was, helping consult with some of these practices that were dealing with this, and they were stressed out of their minds. I mean, I was only in the periphery. I wasn't like deeply involved with it, but I was watching and talking to practice managers and administrators about what was going on, and it was brutal. It was brutal.
Well, this is another point we talk a fair amount, and I think you opened with it, Milan. These can be if I get breached, God forbid, it could be game ending for me. I do think about that. But the point you're making right now is not only that, but it could be game ending for your patients, your clients, your customers.
100%.
Like this snowballs.
And it sounds like I sound a little like Chicken Little, but it goes back to when you look at the dollar amounts involved with this data, and because it's the top data you can get on the dark web. It's the most highly priced. You have the biggest target. I don't care how big you are. If they can only glean a smaller payment out of you, as if you think you're too small to be hit by this, then I think you need to open your eyes, because you see these breaches happening across organizations of various sizes, whether it's large or small.
I think the most common thing to think about is you might think that you're too small to be breached, but really you're just too small to make the headlines of the news. You're not too small to be breached. Yeah. Small companies are breached every single day. They're just not important enough to make the headlines. They're just not a big enough company for it to be national news, and so they just go under the radar. And who's going to advertise? Yeah, we were breached last week. Sorry, folks. We're just going to put that out there for ourselves. Yeah. No, they're going to want to sweep it under the rug and hide it because it's embarrassing, right? Yeah. And so unless they have to disclose it, they won't.
Well, and if it's a big enough breach, it will be on the Office of Civil Rights website. They'll have a press release, because they love to show that they're enforcing, and they're gonna especially the big ones, right? That you can go on there. We'll talk a little bit about maybe some of those, but
real quick, Mario, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, a couple things. Do we have like any public knowledge of what happened, how they started? Was it like one click, or was it a social engineering? Do we know?
Mario, it's a good question, and I didn't get deep enough into the technical details of it. So that's something that might be worth looking at to see, maybe even like a case study of what happened, and is kind of a cautionary tale. But I mean, they didn't have multi-factor authentication. Somebody got credentials or guessed the credentials, right? They brute forced it, whatever they did, and got in. I mean, that's a pretty common story, right? It's brute force attacks, and then there's no MFA, and you're in. So, but anyway,
and the thing is too, part of that after effect too that we were just mentioning, it's not only just your company and your customers, but it's also your employees, like that medical billing.
Yeah.
It's now they have, I don't know, I'm guessing, a good amount of employees that are literally, jobless. They have no place to go. They probably are not easily going to collect unemployment, or not going to collect it for a while, and now they probably have, it's their families as well. I know, when you're an owner and you have employees, especially with small businesses, you tend to grow, you tend to have your employees feel like they're part of your family, so now they've pretty much not only ruined his company, but they've ruined the livelihood of a lot of their employees.
Oh yeah. I mean, and think about that 190 million, 193 million patients data. like now they're in the crosshairs for who knows what kind of fraud. If they have enough data, they can now go after them. And it just goes on and on and on. The ripple effect of an event like this, it can be just absolutely devastating, and it could go on for years. The impact of it, right, financially and otherwise. So
let's accelerate through, because there's a fair amount. I'm already scared, and I'm not. I don't run and own a healthcare practice. So let's go through the rest of this real quick, and then let's get into
let's do
please, for the love of God, make me feel better. What
what can we do about it? Yeah. So first of all, I just so Justin, I talked to you about this before we got on. I just want to throw out a couple definitions, so
Sure.
we're all have kind of level set, and everybody kind of understands the language I'm speaking or we're speaking on this call. So the first is, of course, HIPAA. There's the Office of Civil Rights, which is the OCR. They're the primary enforcer of HIPAA under the Department of Health and Human Services. So if you talk about the OCR, they're the ones with the stick.
They're the ones that come in and say, "Hi, I'm the government, and I'm here to help you."
Yeah. Then you have PHI, which is protected health information. That's basically your medical records, physical, mental health, whatever, any care you receive, payments for that care, anything that can identify you. So it's individual identifiable information. I don't go into that, but there's so many acronyms in healthcare. It's just kind of stupid. But and then I wanted to actually throw this out because PHI, you think of PHI like your name, your phone number, your email. There's all these obvious ones, but under cybersecurity, there's actually, I looked up sort of what are some PHI specific to information technology. There's actually 3 I wanted to throw out there. Maybe you guys know it, maybe not. There's MAC addresses, like for smart medical devices, that could be considered PHI. Web URLs that point to patient-specific portals, documents, lab results.
Ooh.
That kind of stuff. IP addresses. I mean, this goes back to the OCR's online tracking guidance that they have. But if you have any website tracking pixels, that kind of stuff, and you're capturing IP addresses that in some way can be tied back to an individual, then that would be considered PHI. So I just want to throw that out there as something to be aware of as you're logging this information in your systems, right?
Right.
So, and then the final thing is covered entity. We talk about in HIPAA, what is a covered entity? It's basically any person or organization that creates, receives, maintains, transmits protected health information. And that could be either the organization, the primary organization, or vendors like the billing company to their, that medical billing company, or Change Healthcare to all the practices that use their services. So
I guess that would include MSPs because we're storing and tracking
100%.
A lot of data.
Yeah.
Too.
If you have medical practices and you have a BAA in place, let's talk after.
Yeah.
You need to, for sure.
One thing that comes to mind, we had an attorney on here a while back that we interviewed, and he talked about the importance of not gathering information and not storing information that you don't absolutely need.
Right.
Like either don't gather it in the first place or get rid of it when you're done with it. But to keep this stuff wherever you store it, it doesn't matter. You're just increasing your liability.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I was hoping we'd have more time to do this, but I'm going to skip this part. This is just talking about actual penalties. Just know that.
No, don't skip it. Just I want you to go through this. I'm just like, hey, let's speed it up and then get to get me off of this cliff because I'm about ready to jump.
Okay, I'm so sorry. This is what happens when you have the most highly regulated industry in the country, right? I mean, this is how it goes. So let me just talk about the HIPAA violation penalties just really quick. It's a tiered system based on, there's like 4 tiers, and there's different a different range of per violation financial penalties. So the first tier is unknowing, meaning you didn't know, you're either your covered entity or your business associate didn't know and couldn't reasonably know about the violation. So there's still fines for that. Even though if you didn't know, you could still be in violation and still get fined for that. Reasonable cause, meaning the violation was due to reasonable cause, not willful neglect. So you weren't trying to neglect, but there's still a violation. So you made some efforts, but it still happened. Willful neglect but it was corrected. So that's the third tier. willful neglect corrected within required time periods. So there's a corrective action that happens and they don't get as high of a fine. Or the top tier, you don't want to be top tier. Tier 4 is the willful neglect and it's uncorrected. And so the range is from the tier 1 is from $141 per violation up to tier 4 up to $2.1 million per violation.
Per violation. And a violation is that per record or is that just per incident?
It's actually, I prepared a statement for this because I knew this, I was going to be asked this. I'm just going to read it because it says it a lot better than off the top of my head. Under HIPAA, per violation doesn't mean per patient or per breach. It depends on what was broken. If a practice fails to run a required security risk analysis for 3 years, that's 3 violations. If they email 500 patient records to the wrong person, that's 500 violations. So the OCR decides the count based on the rule section violated, how long it lasted, and how many people were affected. So that's
wow.
So you're fucked. Just
you're
bottom
fucked,
line,
yeah.
you're
any
fucked.
way you look at it, yes.
Let's bring this to layman terms.
So where it goes into criminal violation. So if the OCR sees that a violation that somebody knowingly obtains or discloses the PHI in violation of HIPAA, then they will send it over to the Department of Justice, and it becomes a criminal violation. So, like, I'm trying to see if I have any examples of that.
Yeah, is that if I'm a doctor and I sell my own patient records to somebody for nefarious reasons? Is that what we're talking about here?
Maybe, I don't know. So here's one. Here's what I found.
I have a storefront on the dark web. Come get my stuff.
Well, here's what happened. Actually, one of them is a researcher accessed patients' records out of curiosity and was sentenced to 4 months in prison. This is an important point. So when you look at like electronic medical record systems, a lot of them have these auditing capabilities where they can see. And I'm trying to remember which one. I was actually, as a HIPAA security officer, I had to have really awkward conversations with providers and staff when they had accessed either their family's records or another employee's records, or even their own records sometimes, like if a physician is going in and messing with his own record. So we called it the break the glass report. And I would receive these emails from corporate and they would say, you need to go talk to this person and find out what happened. But that's, you could go to prison. I mean, this guy did that. He was out of curiosity. Oh, you know, that person, I want to find out more about them. And you pull up and you have no reason to look at their information. So that's one. So you don't want to access family, coworkers, medical records, that kind of stuff. And then another one was an employee sold their PHI to file fraudulent tax returns. That's another one. That was U.S. versus Ferrer back in 2015. That was a multi-year sentence and restitution. So,
and this comes back to, I think you've already said it. I know we talked about it in our brainstorming session. You not only in business at large, but in healthcare, not only do you have to vet your vendors, but you have to vet your employees very carefully
and train them, because that a lot of people do just out of curiosity and don't realize that they're breaking the law.
100%.
Right?
Well, that's part of, we'll go into that, the meat of what Justin's talking about, which is, you know, what do you do? Like, what are the security standards under HIPAA, and how does that overlap with some of the security standards you guys use with your clients? And so we need to get there. We'll get there. So, but what I wanted to do is talk about what the Office of Civil Rights, what their current focus is, because I think it'll help guide us into that conversation. So the first one is what's called the Security Risk Analysis, the SRA. Mm-hmm. They are cracking down on, so that's the first thing they're going to ask for. If you get breached,